I have a question for you. Have you ever tried to extend yourself farther than you thought you could? Farther than is comfortable? Recently, my family was in Bentonville, and there's a big rock climbing boulder upon which people can practice and play for free, and our 11-year-old daughter loves it. When we went there 2 weekends ago, I got to watch herself extend beyond what I thought was possible. You see, there's an easy way to the top of the boulder, and that's the path I take when I go. And there's a much, much harder way, and that's the route our daughter decided to focus on this time. The highest handhold, the one that you have to reach in order to get on top of the 12-foot boulder, was about 2 inches beyond her arm's reach, which meant on this day she had to do something different than she was used to. She had to adjust her foot in a new way while stretching her arms as far as they could go, and then she had to leap out and up into thin air about 2 inches to grab that next hold. It made this mother very, very nervous. Larbeard's shaking her hand over. Yeah, so I sat on the side with my head down reading a book, trying not to watch, but peeking every once in a while. Thankfully, her papa's a little more courageous than me, and he calmly encouraged her while she fell at least a dozen times, maybe more. But finally, after working on it on and off for 2 days, she got it. She figured out just how to extend in just the right way, and after that, it was a breeze. Her body and her mind now knew what to do, and she scampered up the boulder again and again. And she told me afterwards, she said, "Mom, the hardest part was convincing my brain that I wasn't gonna fall." It was humbling to see how she kept on trying, kept on extending herself beyond what she thought was possible. And it's this type of extension of ourselves, of reaching out to others beyond what we think is possible or comfortable, that is a large part of Jesus' teaching and life. And even though it is good and holy and right, loving in this expansive kind of way does not always bring peace. Just think about all the ways that Jesus showed us this over the course of his life. Jesus asks us to extend ourselves to love our neighbors as ourselves, no matter who they are. He teaches us to extend blessings to the weak and the poor. In his day, that teaching did not make everyone happy. Jesus extends his healing to an oppressor in his country, the Roman centurion, in order to heal the soldier's friend. That one was probably pretty hard for folks to swallow. He also reaches out to heal, in another story, the Samaritan woman at the well and the Syrophoenician woman's child. Those were two people that were not Jews from Bethlehem. They were not like him culturally. Finally, in perhaps the most radical move, Jesus extends grace to 10 people with leprosy. Everybody was afraid of them. He pushed those limits all the time, and it was very uncomfortable for lots of people. But he did it anyway. Like my daughter climbing on that boulder, Jesus is always reaching just a little farther, asking everyone around him, just how far do you think God's grace goes? And yet, in today's reading, the Prince of Peace admits that this is really hard work for humans. He does this when he says, "Do not think I've come to bring peace to the earth. I've not come to bring peace, but a sword. I've come to set man against his father and daughter against her mother." It's a jarring statement, don't you think? Not our normal Jesus that we hear. But I do not think Jesus was saying, I came to earth and my goal is tension. My goal is strife. I don't think he's saying that. What he's acknowledging is that radical grace has a side effect. When God's grace goes just a little too far for some folks, it elicits the sword. It elicits division, even within families and between friends. It can even get you killed on a cross. Jesus' expansive grace brought the sword straight into his own side because people refused to extend their boundaries of love. Now, as our resident theologian Barclay Thompson says in his book, I feel like I can quote him because he's in Iceland today. He says, the negative reaction of the crowds to some of Jesus' teaching is because this is more than they want to hear. The crowd wants comfort without struggle. They want rest without exertion. They want new life, but they want to keep their old ways of living too. They're like us, in other words. Well, we are called to follow this way, to expand grace to people who are different than us, to be curious and to learn and to try to understand those for whom it is a stretch. But we do not grow spiritually by being comfortable. We are to risk our whole lives, extending love, extending everything, even if it brings the sword from others. Now, on this morning, I don't know what your stretch is, what your handhold is that causes you to have to readjust and leap into the air in order to grow spiritually. Only you know what that is. But I do know that each of us has a stretch. And that stretch, that expansion, is the way we are called to follow. So, church, how far can we reach? Even if it's uncomfortable. How far do we think God's grace extends? Please remember, just like an 11-year-old trying to climb a great big boulder, the hardest part may be convincing your brain that you're not going to fall, that God will be with you through it all, and that you will be pleasantly surprised when you get over that first big hurdle. You will find that you are capable of loving in ways you never thought possible, all because grace was first lavishly and radically